For most of human history, we were scattered. But the moment we learned to farm, we started pulling together. We clumped into settlements, then towns, and eventually cities, instinctively minimizing the distance between each other to make trading, working, and surviving require less energy. To protect that efficiency, early cities built inward and upward. People lived tightly packed near their workplaces and markets, creating dense urban cores. This is a graph showing urban scaling laws. It plots population growth against the demand for infrastructure, and it displays a clear sublinear curve. In a healthy city, as the population grows, the need for new infrastructure slows down. If 1 million people move into a dense urban center, you don't have to build 1 million new power lines or lay 1 million miles of water pipes. You just upgrade the existing grid. That creates a massive gap between the number of taxpayers and the physical cost to support them. Traditional cities or mathematical engines, they're physical spaces engineered to stretch resources, lower per capita costs, and generate surplus wealth. But if you look at how North American cities have developed over the last 80 years, that mathematical engine is moving in the opposite direction. These recent findings from urban scaling researchers show that modern urban expansion is scaling superlinearly. The line for infrastructure demand climbs faster than the population itself. As these cities grow, they are becoming less dense. Every new resident in a sprawling suburb requires exponentially more asphalt, longer power lines, and wider sewer pipes than a resident in a dense urban core. This outward explosion consumes so much land that distinct cities are beginning to bleed into one another, creating massive megalopolises stretching for hundreds of miles. Expanding this way strips a city of its economy of scale. By inverting how a city functions, we are building places that cannot financially support their own physical weight. The shift occurred in the mid-20th century. New zoning laws explicitly separated residential neighborhoods from commercial districts, while massive federal highway acts heavily subsidized car infrastructure over public transit. Governments carved trenches right through existing communities to lay down the interstate highway system. This paved a path out of the city core and into the empty surrounding land. This graph maps the cash flow of a typical new suburban development. In year one, it looks like a fantastic deal for the municipality. A private developer pays to build the local streets and water mains, and the city gets a huge influx of fresh property tax revenue with almost zero immediate maintenance costs. But roads and pipes have a life cycle. About 25 years later, that infrastructure needs to be resurfaced and rebuilt. Because the neighborhood is spread out, the tax revenue collected from those low-density homes only covers a fraction of the replacement cost. To pay that bill, the city relies on a specific tactic, approving another new development on the edge of town. They use the initial cash from the new project to pay the maintenance debts of the old ones. By requiring a constant influx of new developer cash to cover old maintenance debts, the suburban model mirrors the mechanics of a growth Ponzi scheme. The city becomes addicted to expansion just to stave off bankruptcy. If the math of suburban sprawl is ruining municipal budgets, why don't local governments simply halt the expansion and build denser, transit-oriented infrastructure instead? To answer that, we have to look back at how cities used to build. In the mid-20th century, powerful planners operated with almost zero oversight. They pushed projects through working-class communities, bisecting neighborhoods and displacing thousands of people without their consent. In response to those abuses, lawmakers established strict environmental reviews and mandated community input. The goal was to put checks and balances on centralized authority and give citizens a voice in their own neighborhoods. Over the decades, this process mutated into what analysts call a vetocracy. It created a procedural maze where countless individuals and local groups hold the legal power to delay or sue a project, yet nobody has the authority to actually approve it. If you want to lay a high-speed rail line or upgrade the electrical grid today, you face thousands of pages of reviews and years of legal challenges from anyone who doesn't want it in their backyard. We successfully ended the era of authoritarian city planning, but the side effect is a system paralyzed by its own procedures, unable to adapt to its financial crises. In theory, a city can grow forever as long as its materials hold out. We have enough concrete, steel, and open land to continue the exodus for decades. However, McKinsey research suggests that growth hits a ceiling long before we run out of supplies. The true constraint is managerial complexity, the point where a city's systems become too difficult to coordinate. When a city's footprint grows too vast, essential management breaks down. Traffic gridlocks out into the suburbs. Water tables are drained until neighborhoods physically sink, and drainage systems back up into the streets. A healthy city operates like a complex biological organism, sending resources efficiently to its dense core. But when sprawling growth is subsidized and unregulated, it behaves like a metabolic disease, spreading until its requirements drain the host. Outward sprawl carries a mathematical and managerial weight that guarantees its own collapse. For thousands of years, cities sustained themselves without collapsing because they adhered to the basic laws of agglomeration. Reversing the crisis requires reforming the restrictive zoning laws and procedural bottlenecks that make it difficult to build dense, mixed-use neighborhoods. This return to form involves narrower streets, homes mixed with shops and workplaces, and environments that prioritize walking and public transit. To survive the 21st century, we don't need to invent radical new technologies. We just need to legally allow ourselves to rebuild the efficient, human-scaled math that made cities work in the first place.